To talk more about what it means to teeter on the edge of the glass cliff, Tracy spoke with the president of Brown University, Christina Paxson. Paxson was elected the 19th president of Brown 3 years ago, succeeding Brown's first female president, Ruth Simmons. Tracy started off by asking Paxson what the glass cliff means to her.
You know, there are a number of surprises, and some have to do with being a woman, and some don't. I think some are very generic leadership issues. One of the things that really surprised me the most, you know, I step into a presidency, it's a large organization, it's 8,000 students, thousands of employees, and when it comes down to it, leading a very large organization is fundamentally no different than leading a very small organization. You know, you have to assemble a great team of people, you have to set a vision, you have to get people moving in the right direction, and be very clear about what your goals and priorities are. The biggest challenge, I think, has been with the scale up is thinking about communication. When you're trying to communicate to 90,000 alumni and a campus full of people and really say, look, this is what we're doing, these are our objectives, these are our priorities, and this is how you can participate in those, it's a different ballgame.
Research shows that success and likability for a man is very different to success and likability for a woman. For example, the more successful a man is, the more likable he is. But for a woman, the more successful she is, it's not always the case that she's always more likable.
Right.
How do you balance that? How do you make sure that as you stay successful, that you also can achieve a sense of likability, because you do lead such a large organization?
I think that's a very good point, and there are tensions between likability and success, and I think they are more difficult for women than they are for men. And you know, what I found more is that some of the traits that lead to likability also lead to a sense of, well, you're not really sure of yourself. You know, being sure of yourself, being very clear and purposeful, tend to be associated, at least among women, with being less likable. So it's a balancing act. You know, at the end of the day, I have to do the job the best way possible. I have to make sure that Brown is going in the right direction, be very clear about what I want to do, and then try to develop the personal relationships with people that help them understand that even though I'm a professional woman, I'm actually a really nice person too.
One of your missions as president of Brown has been to really increase the student body year after year. Brown, of course, a very reputable Ivy League school. However, you also face tough competition from other very reputable Ivy League schools. Right. How do you grow the student body?
Well, you know, we haven't grown the undergraduate student body that much, and we may not be growing it that much more in the coming years. I think it'll be slow growth. Where we've really grown is in graduate programs, and specifically in executive master's programs for mid-career students. This is a big market. It's a growing market just because of demographic change. And we've done very well, I think, starting to establish a real foothold in that area. Sure, we're in competition. You know, we're university presidents, we're all good friends, we talk to each other and we compete like crazy. So one of the big benefits of American higher education is there's so much choice, there's so much diversity in terms of size and style and strength, that the whole admissions process is really about matching, getting the right students in the right places.
Asians, particularly Chinese and Indians,
yes,
make up the biggest student population, the biggest international student population in the U.S. How do you ensure that there is diversity, equal diversity, and that you balance the domestic students and the international students?
So you raise a really interesting point, which is the number of Chinese applicants for both undergraduate as well as doctoral programs has just grown astronomically. And this isn't just at Brown, it's all over, and you know that. We're now at the point where about 15% of our international undergraduates are from China, and over 40% of our doctoral students who are international are from China. So very, very large contingent. One thing I've been pushing on is more financial aid for international students. So right now our annual aid budget, financial aid budget for domestic students is about $100 million a year, for international students about $10 million a year. And what that's let us do is have more diversity among international students, even from China, within China. So we're now attracting students not just from the major cities, but also from small towns.
Brown, like a lot of other universities, is very heavily reliant on donations in order to keep operations running.
We are.
It is, of course, an academic institution. So how do you ensure that the lines are not blurred between academics and big money?
You know, what we have to be very careful about is to maintain very strong internal standards that govern what types of gifts we accept, and also, very importantly, separating philanthropy from admissions, right? So those are slightly different things, but they're very important. We do not discuss gifts with families whose children are in the applicant pool. We just don't do it.
Does it strike you as ironic that 50 years ago women weren't allowed to even enroll in Ivy League schools, and today you have many Ivy Leagues and other universities as well that are headed by women such as yourself?
I think it is ironic. I think it's wonderful. And one of the things that I really like is the fact that, you know, I was not the first woman to be president of Brown. I'm the second. And what that means is when I came in, it wasn't a big deal. And that's a really good thing. That's the way it should be.